Hello, and today I'm welcoming Sarah Szekir-Papasavva, Virtual Assistant at APT Virtual Assistants. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Lovely. Thank you, Hayley. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you. So I'll start with my first question. How would you describe the journey that has led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, an enjoyable one too. My background is originally in fine art. So I studied a BA in painting over 4 years in the south of Brazil. And then I did a practice-based MA, we call it an MFA in Leeds, where I then specialized in digital art. And it was only after that that I really stumbled upon the PA/EA world and started building a career around that. So I worked as a PA initially, really enjoyed it. Did some training through Suitors after that in Suitors in London and qualified as an executive PA. And so my previous role was a corporate job working as the EA of the director of a private commercial property company and in central London. And although I loved it, really, really enjoyed it, it was very demanding in terms of the hours and the commitments. So when I started a family, although I had every intention to go back, I did start to realize that I really needed more flexibility. And that's when I started exploring my options and luckily found out all about virtual assistants. Initially, I think I Googled the term and I found these amazing resources online, especially from a site called the VA Handbook that's run by Joanne Monroe. And suddenly I saw this huge potential in the field itself, but even beyond that, because I realized that it could be a way of me bringing together those two passions. So the creative side of things and the admin and organizational side of things. So I went back to Suitors as soon as my maternity leave was finished and I trained with them again, but this time as a virtual assistant. And then I set up my limited company, Apt Virtual Assistants, and I've not looked back since really. It's been 3 years now, almost 3 years, 4 awards and lots of fun. So what I do is I work with small business owners from a wide range of industries and I offer a variety of services through admin and creative support. And no 2 days are the same, which is something that I love.
And it's amazing you have a fine art degree. I do as well.
Oh, lovely.
Amazing that you could reflect on that and then go back to them again and go, right, okay, this job isn't quite working and this one's a bit more flexible, which I've heard really quite a lot actually in the industry, that working as an assistant is great for when you start a family.
Yes, yeah. It's a juggle as well, because of course when you start a family there's this whole new world that opens up, but the flexibility around it really facilitated, being able to be home with my daughter as well as fulfilling the career side of things that as a woman I really needed as well.
Oh, so you touched upon the fact that you enjoyed both admin work and creative work, but what type of work do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, so what I enjoy the most, I think it's from the creative side due to my background, but that doesn't just mean the design work for me. I find that there's different ways of being creative, even within the admin. So for example, in problem solving, in thinking outside the box, in being proactive, and also within the technology that I use as a virtual assistant. So figuring out different ways of making the tools and the tech that we use work in our favor to make our work more efficient, less time consuming, just generally to have better results, both for my business and for clients as well. But the work that makes me happiest, I think, is usually designing flyers, newsletters, social media graphic, websites, but then actually create as well. So assisting in the marketing side of things, in the scheduling and the organizing around those tasks, also being heavily involved in the planning stages and the accountability, generally being that trustworthy right hand that I think PAs and EAs are, just virtually in my case.
I'm sure at the moment as well, you touched upon the tools, they've been so useful with everyone adapting. And that actually leads me on to my next question. How has the pandemic impacted your job?
Yeah, so the demand from clients has increased, and I believe it has impacted the VE industry's growth very positively. Personally, at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost a few clients, those who found themselves in a position of not being able to adapt, not being able to carry on trading. However, I then started really getting a lot of new inquiries from others who'd had that final push that they needed to get some help on board to help them with that transition to working online. And interestingly, half of the clients who I lost during the first lockdown then came back during the second half of last year when they saw that, it wasn't going to be a temporary thing. They needed to get through it. They needed to adapt in the best possible way. And for me, that meant, coming in to identify processes, honing their practices, implementing systems sometimes so that the time that was used up more efficiently, especially with what was thrown into the mix, of homeschooling and childcare and working from home and online. And I'll also say that the VA community, in my opinion, is fantastic. It's so supportive and inspiring. So to borrow a phrase from the Society of Virtual Assistants, run by Carolyn Wiley, it really is for me collaboration over competition, I feel. So VAs will often work with other VAs as associates, for example, which is a great way of sharing workload, makes everything more manageable, but also offers the client new skill sets, from another VA who has other expertise. So it widens that quite well. And I think the VA industry is certainly a great area to be working in during these crazy times we're going through now.
Yes, I mean, in my short time in the industry, it's been absolutely wonderful. And what you were saying about collaboration, I've seen that firsthand, and it's really nice to see everyone support each other, especially at the moment. But the fact that it's like that all the time is amazing. So that leads me on to my next question. Which tools are essential in your day-to-day role?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because as you can imagine, there's just so many new tools that are out there and being developed and launched all the time. So it's really hard for me not to be distracted, and also it's tempting to try new things all the time. So in my opinion, it does take discipline to focus and identify what it is you want to achieve before you commit to spending time on learning a new tool, or before you invest time and money setting up those new tools that in the end might not even be the solution you're after anyway. I always attend Web Summit, which is an annual tech conference. It attracts around 70,000 people during the 3 days that it runs. And it's just amazing to see all these fantastic developments within the tech world, how it's used within every industry in different ways. So I learn a lot when I go there. And I'm a huge fan of exploring new ways of just improving the way that we work and how we do things, especially for me online. So today, the tools that I value the most and use on a day-to-day basis are the ones that help me run my business more efficiently, and also my clients' businesses. So they are things like project management tools, such as Asana and Trello, I like those. My CRM system, I use Capsule. Also a time tracking tool, I use Toggle. Password manager, which is very important, I use LastPass. Online storage such as Dropbox, many others out there. Also Zoom, what's making this possible today. And more specifically for me, also the professional editing software. So I use Adobe Creative Cloud, and that includes tools like Photoshop, InDesign and the likes. I think I'll stop there.
Lots there that I recognise and use myself, actually. Some really good tools out there. Before the pandemic, was your job completely virtual, or has it become completely virtual since?
It has since, but before the pandemic, I would meet with clients face-to-face, at least for the first time. I really enjoyed that. I'd also attend networking meetings, in-person training as well, and conferences, events in general. But since everything has had to move online, I now still do those things, but virtually. So yeah, 100% virtual now. My local networking group, which is the wonderful Athena network, has done an amazing job of transitioning online. So that's been seamless. It's been great to keep in touch and connected to lots of inspiring other businesswomen. This year's Web Summit, as I mentioned before, was also online, which was a huge testament to the wonderful things tech can do. It was a huge event to put online. And the VA conference, which is run by John Palmer and his wonderful team, will take place online as well this year over 4 days. It's in March, and the UK VA Awards is within that. So yes, it's still able to do all those things online, and that's been great. The flexibility for me of being fully virtual is something I only really dreamed of before becoming a VA. Yeah, so it really allows me to work from anywhere with clients globally. In fact, one of the services I offer is executive assistance in Brazilian Portuguese, and being virtual allows me to have clients everywhere. And also I have a strong beliefs, strong values that I believe, which being virtual allows me to implement into my business a little bit easier. For example, having a paperless office is something that I really believe in, sustainability part of it. So that's part of my CSR, my corporate social responsibility, and being virtual really helps with that. Give me a laptop and an internet connection and set up for work.
So it's amazing that you have that option to work with clients on such a broad spectrum.
Especially now when we can't really travel.
It really has opened everything up, and you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but what are your top tips for your ideal work-life balance, especially when working from home?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because it's something that I have to remind myself all the time, especially now in lockdown. So working from home, of course, is a huge topic, so many different takes on it, as we're all having to do it to some capacity. Though some of us, which is my case, I've had to adapt to having a family around while working from home, so, which wasn't the case before. But my top tips are simple ones, but I think it's what you do with them that really makes a difference. And they are, the two main ones are your setup and your planning. So having a good setup in place generally, from where you are working down to how you're working, for me is key. I really recommend finding a separate enough way of dividing your workspace from your living space, which doesn't have to mean separate rooms, but more simple things like, for example, I love essentials, so I diffuse them through my diffuser. I'll have a combination of scents that work well for me with focus and concentration. And then in the evening, I'll change me to wind down, and the environment subtly but really effectively changes for me. So, little things that you wouldn't necessarily think that sometimes can really make a big difference. And my other tip around planning. So for me, having a routine is essential, especially with a little one, really helps with everything. But having said that, also having a flexible routine to allow for all the pressures that we're all facing and dealing with now. So an ideal routine for me is one where the expectations are clear to all those around you, whether you're working with them, just living with them, but also where time is used up quite efficiently. So for example, with downtime, if you schedule downtime, that it really is downtime and not just spent organizing your to-do list in your head for the next day. So having those kind of clear yet flexible boundaries really helps me with a better work-life balance.
Oh, there's some great advice there. And I love your thought about the essential oils. I haven't thought about. I do like burning a candle, but having different oil scents and moods for each part of the day.
Scented candles, you might find that it makes a difference. Even the backgrounds, music in the background, if you have a playlist where you're just focusing, and then later on you have one to relax. Those little things help me. I hope it helps others too.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really useful, and I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed this interview. Thank you for joining me today, Sarah.
My pleasure, Hayley. Thank you, and thank you to everyone at PA Life.